Hi everybody, it's Jeff. It's time for part 36 of the Thunder Model Scammell transporter build in 1/35 scale. There are several photo etch baskets, I guess you'd call them, on the Scammell and the trailer that need to be assembled out of multiple pieces of photo etch. I prefer to solder that kind of stuff. I'm really rusty at soldering. It's been a while. I did make one up just a little bit ago, and I just left the camera running. I didn't really, do any kind of talking or anything, but I'll do a little bit of voiceover. I'll show you some of the tools I used, and I'll show you a little bit of the video of me actually soldering this together. I need to clean the joints up just a tiny little bit, but I think it turned out pretty well. Okay, let's go down the bench and I'll show you what I did. Okay, be right back. Okay, one of the tools that's really important for this kind of work is a bender of some kind. Some of these are real long bends. I had to fold all three of the longer pieces in half, and there's just really no way to do it without some kind of bender. I'm not saying you need this one, but you need some kind of bender to do that. Okay, I didn't record bending the parts. It really wasn't that big a deal. The three little parts that just have a bend in half, I just used these. These work real good. They're the Tamiya bending pliers, the mini set. I also have a larger set, but I use the little set a lot more often. Okay. Some of the tools I use to solder this. I have a ceramic block here. It's got little holes in it for pins to kind of help you align things and hold things in place. First thing I did was I set the center long piece on the edge here, and then I soldered the three cross pieces to it while it was on the edge, and then I did one of the long pieces, and then I flipped it over and I did the other one. First I used this flux. This is basically just used for plumbing. It's kind of old, but it's what I've got. It looks like it's not, I got a lot of it, but it's might be a little bit contaminated. And then I just used some small solder I just happened to have. Nothing special. I really want to buy a nice soldering station and get some solder that I know the melting points of and that type of thing, and some better equipment if I'm going to be doing a lot more photo etch, which I hope to do in the future. I don't know where I put the little pins. There they are. There's the little pins that go in this board. You can, put them in different configurations to kind of hold your pieces while you're soldering. It just makes it easier to keep things kind of at 90-degree angles and that type of stuff. Got it on Amazon. Didn't cost much of anything. But it's just, got holes all the way through. So it works really, really well. And it's heat resistant, and it doesn't suck the heat out of the part too. It's non-conductive. And then for the soldering, I just use this. Let me grab it here. This basic, plain little, I think it's a Radio Shack. You don't hear that name much anymore. Basic little soldering iron. I don't even know what the wattage is on this. 15 watt. And this was more than plenty hot enough. Could have done with a lot smaller one. Okay, I'll be right back, guys. Okay, here's basically my setup. I am very, very rusty at this. So I made a few errors and I did a few things the wrong way. But I finally got it in the end. I'm fluxing all the joints. I made sure everything was nice and clean. I used my fiberglass pencil to make sure the places where the joints were nice and clean. Then I fluxed everything, and then I heated it with my iron to melt the flux and to make sure the parts were nice and clean. Okay, here all I was doing was just checking my spacing, and then I'm soldering in the last of the center pieces. I always put solder on the biggest part and then put the smaller part on top of it, and then just heat the joint, and then it should stick into place. So there's the first three, actually 4 parts all soldered together. I put it back on the corner, and then I've got this other piece to solder to one side. Then I'll flip it around. So you got to make sure you put flux on everything. I should be using a little brush, but I just happen to have a toothpick handy. Get all your joints fluxed, and then I tend to heat them up first and then put just a drop of solder on the part. Okay, all the parts are fluxed. Then I put just the tiniest drop of solder on the end of the soldering iron and touch it to the places where it was fluxed. Doesn't take very much at all. And then just set the part on top, get it all lined up, and matter of touching the joints, and it'll lock it all in place. Or just making sure I'm facing it the right direction. Takes very little heat to melt the solder. And once you're all happy with the way it's all lined up, just touch the iron to it. I'm just making sure that the joint doesn't have, the soldering iron doesn't have any excess solder on it. And there's one, there's 2, and there's 3. I think I go back and just double check. Okay, there's the next one, all soldered up. Let's do the other side. Okay, here I'm just using the pins on the board to line everything up and to hold it straight. Just to make sure nothing moves while I'm soldering it. The pins are somewhat tapered, so they kind of lock in. But it's a real good way just to hold your parts to make sure nothing moves while you're soldering. I think the pins are aluminum, so the solder shouldn't really stick to them. Making sure I get flux on all the joints. Okay, here's the last part. I'm putting a little solder on the joints. Just takes a tiny bit. and then I'll set the last piece on top of that, and it's all been cleaned and fluxed and everything already. It's just a matter of getting it lined up. I could use some pins to help line it up too, but I didn't do it this time. Okay, and it's just a matter of touching the thought about using the tweezers to hold it down, but that didn't really seem like the best. But it worked out. Just a quick touch. And then of course I had to go back and double check. That took care of it. It still needs to be cleaned up. I haven't, I can sand the joints and everything and clean what little bit of flux there is off of there. But there's our part. All finished up. Still a little bit on the warm side. It cools down pretty fast. Just a reminder, I'm going to be on Model Kit Stuff's channel Friday. It'll be 2 o'clock in the afternoon my time, 9 p.m. UK time. If you guys get a chance, I'll be on with Jason and James from Bold to Go Model Works. Drop in and say hi if you can. I'm going to put a couple of pictures at the end, but that's going to about do it for today. Alrighty, guys. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.